There's a lot of chatter about the FTA. Some say that it's been stagnating. Some have been very optimistic about the forward movement in it. What do you think will be the key sticking points for New Delhi and London? Because you remember, climate is also being discussed. The visa issue is also being talked about. So how do you think New Delhi and London can take this forward?
I think all of these issues, whether you're talking about the question of visas, whether you're talking about the question of climate, health and safety regulations, whether you're talking about specifics on trade and manufacturing, all of that's important in negotiating what will be a complex trade agreement. The problem under the Conservative government is that those negotiations got politicized because of the simple argument, which was, oh, we'll have this great trade agreement that will replace the one that we were supposed to get with the US, which never materialized post-Brexit. And then on the other hand, you had elements in the Conservative Party who were saying, we have to cut back on legal immigration. And of course, many Indians come to the UK to study and to work. There is now an opportunity for Labour to get out of that political box by saying, look, we're going to negotiate a sensible trade agreement with India, which includes freedom of movement for people under visas, and we are not going to stigmatize these people as being awful immigrants who have to be kept out of the country, which is what the Tories and the Reform Party have been doing.
I'm very glad that you've talked about immigration, because Charlotte, I'm running short of time, Professor, so let me quickly also move over to Charlotte. Charlotte, as far as the crackdown on immigration is concerned, this has been a very touchy topic for Indians over here as well. Students have been very afraid. But, you know, let's not forget, that's one promise that was made by the Labour and the Tories as well. How is it different when you compare their own policies? I know that Keir Starmer has promised to scrap the Rwanda plan, but what are the other differences?
Not only has he promised to scrap the Rwanda plan, he's also promised to sort out our asylum processes so there's more staff to work through the huge asylum backlog. Yes, there will still be strict measures on borders, but no Rwanda bill and improved asylum. And I also imagine it won't be the same Suella Braverman kind of approach to immigration and visas from India either. That very far right, I would say, approach, especially to India and the fantastic students that we see come over here and add to our vibrant and diverse country, that Suella Braverman was having an issue with, is not something that is the kind of ideological approach typical of Labour. So we'll probably see something different there, more positive actually.
I'm glad you named Suella Braverman, because Sushant, that is, you know, her name has now almost become synonymous for the kind of approach that was being adopted by the Conservatives, especially towards, you know, Indian immigrants as well.
It's not just about Braverman. I think
the overall Conservative approach, in fact.
Yeah, but I think the problem in the West in general, and not just the UK, has been that, you know, they're clamping down on people who want to come legally on visas, who follow the paper you know, the paper route. They want to crack down on that, and the hundreds of thousands of people who are coming illegally, they have absolutely no idea on how to handle that. And I'm not very sure if Mr. Starmer and the rest of his party, given the kind of orientation they have, whether they'll be able to address this question adequately. And frankly, not from an Indian point of view, but purely from a British point of view, this is becoming a serious issue. And if you don't want it to blow up, because some of the support which probably parties like Reform Party and others are getting is because of this issue. It's becoming a hot button issue. And unless you're going to be able to address it in a fair manner, in a just manner, and in a manner which actually satisfies the people, I'm afraid you're only going to be empowering people like Mr. Nigel Farage and others much more than what you already have done.
I would contest that slightly.
All right, go ahead.
I think it's a fallacy to put everything on those coming over on the boats. I think that's something that all of the parties have fallen in a trap with. Actually, our extremists that we have in this country, those that have been engaged in terrorism, in the main have been born here and raised here in second, third generation. Radicalization is happening within communities, online, in some mosques. It's actually not coming in the boats. And I think the real issue will be understanding this for the Labour Party, also understanding things around Kashmir and Khalistan. Our Khalistanis, for example, live here and not coming on the boats. Shakil Asfar, who's a pro-Kashmir activist independent, who is very aggressive and has been very aggressive to Hindus in this country around Kashmir and Modi. He has been born here, and it's this generation that provide a real issue for extremism and terrorism in the country, not those necessarily coming on the boats.
All right. In fact, I'd like to... all right, Professor, you want to come in?
And I just...
Sure.
Yeah, just two quick factual points that are important, because this is an immigration bogeyman. 90% of the increase in net migration to the UK is from legal migrants who come here to work and study. This is not a surge in illegal migration. That's a whipped up scare story. Secondly, the point why you have a problem with is not immigration per se, it's public services. Because public services have been in difficulties, housing, education, and health.
All right.
Instead of addressing that problem, you wind up blaming the immigrants.
All right.
That's why we have a public relations problem.
I'm afraid I'm running short of time, Ambassador Sinha. I'd like to, in fact, wrap up with your thoughts. While you come back on what Professor was saying, I'd also like you to share your views on what do you think of the new Labour government. Remember, our current trade stands at $30 billion annually, which is 6 times our exports to Russia. What is the scope now going forward?
I think the scope's very good. Before I get to trade and investments, I think what Professor Lucas said is very important, because the net migration figures, which touched 722,000, if I remember correctly, in 2022, was largely illegal migration. So I think the issue that it's a catch-22 situation. People who come there, like international students, contribute 25 billion pounds to the economy. So I think the government has to decide, the people have to decide, do they want these people, doctors, paramedics, the NHS, has a very large number of people from India, both the doctors and paramedics supporting the system. And it's already stressed, even though it was ring-fenced during the Tory time. So I think we need to be very clear, they need to be very clear what they want, because we provide services, up-end services, whether it's IT, whether it's fintech, whether it's profession, whether it's science and technology. We have a very vibrant partnership.
All right.
So I think as far as
we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much. As Keir Starmer himself phrased it, that, change begins from now. Let's hope that as far as UK's foreign policy is concerned, especially their approach towards New Delhi, we'll also see a new, changed, revamped approach. Many thanks to you, gentlemen, and Charlotte, for joining in on The Right Stand. And in fact, with that, let's also bring you a story on who Keir Starmer is. Remember, he's known as Sir Keir Starmer. He is the new Prime Minister. But what went into making Keir Starmer the Prime Minister of UK? There's a lot that goes behind this man. Let's bring you a story about Keir Starmer.
We did it! You campaigned for it, you fought for it, you voted for it, and now it has arrived. Change begins now. 4.5 years of work changing the party. This is what it is for. A changed Labour Party. Ready to serve our country, ready to restore Britain to the service of working people.
Keir Starmer's Labour Party won a landslide victory in the UK general election, sweeping hundreds of seats across the country and ending 14 years of Conservative rule. Labour won more than 400 seats, which is the biggest majority in Parliament for the party since at least Tony Blair's New Labour landslide in 1997. UK's new Prime Minister is a lawyer by profession. Sir Keir was knighted by the late Queen Elizabeth II for his services to law and criminal justice.
Keir Starmer.
He was first elected as a Member of Parliament from London in 2015. Starmer took over from the hard-left Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn in 2020, after the party was reeling from one of the worst defeats in its 100-year history.
but a vote for Labour.
Starmer was
is a vote
ruthless
to
in
turn
changing
the
his
page
party,
on all that.
purging the Corbynites, including
A vote
Corbyn himself,
for change.
and bringing it into a position to win and govern again. Under Starmer, the party has moved to the centre of the political spectrum, abandoning much of its leftist working-class traditions. But now he has his work cut out. Britons are reeling from the impact of Brexit, the pandemic, and a historic fall in living standards.
I have just returned from Buckingham Palace, where I accepted an invitation from His Majesty the King to form the next government of this great nation. I want to thank the outgoing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. His achievement as the first British Asian Prime Minister of our country, the extra effort that will have required should not be underestimated by anyone. And we pay tribute to that today.
On the other hand, voters punish the incumbent Conservatives for a cost of living crisis and years of instability, fighting and scandals during a reign that saw 5 different prime ministers since 2016.
It is a Labour landslide being predicted by the...
Over the years, the public believed that the government mishandled almost every major issue, from health to immigration and the economy. When outgoing Prime Minister Rishi Sunak took over, he tried to pitch himself as an experienced administrator with a clear plan to fix the country's major problems.
I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss. To all the Conservative candidates and campaigners who worked tirelessly but without success, I am sorry that we could not deliver what your efforts deserved. It pains me to think how many good colleagues who contributed so much to their communities and our country will now no longer sit in the House of Commons. I thank them for their hard work and their service.
But he was seen as out of touch with ordinary citizens and unable to make strong, decisive decisions. His extreme wealth has also been a problem. Sunak's decision to call for snap polls backfired and left his party near extinction. One of the most notable defeats was that of Liz Truss. The former Prime Minister served just 49 days in Number 10 before being ousted by her party. She lost her South West Norfolk seat. Reform UK, the right-wing successor to the Brexit Party and the UK Independence Party, finally broke ground this election. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage won a seat on his 8th attempt.
Believe me, folks, this is just the first step of something that is going to stun all of you. Thank you very much.
Former US President Donald Trump had nicknamed Farage Mr. Brexit after he helped persuade a majority to vote and leave the European Union in 2016. Reform UK drew controversy during the 2024 campaign over offensive statements made by some of its candidates and activists.
Ask the Marxists. How do you like Brussels now?
Unlike many other parts of Europe which have seen the rise of the far right, the disenchanted British public appear to have moved to the centre-left instead. But will Labour be the change that the country needs?